In recent years, DreamWorks has really stepped up their game. First was The Bad Guys, which wasn't the best movie, but it looked absolutely fantastic, imitating the graphic novel style so cleanly. Then Puss in Boots came along and blew that out of the water, managing to recreate the structure of an old myth just as well as Shrek, with supernatural drama and flashy colors. Plus, the interpretations of different fairy tale characters for that movie were all huge successes, contributing to its iconic status. Unfortunately, they kinda hit a slump, releasing the barely marketed Ruby Gillman, then two underwhelming sequels for Trolls and Kung Fu Panda. I can't personally say these movies are bad because I didn't see any of them, but they definitely weren't generating a lot of hype. I mean, that's why I didn't see them. But it looks like DreamWorks are back on their animation game with The Wild Robot, which admittedly didn't have incredibly strong marketing either, yet has gotten a lot of social media attention, specifically from the animation crowd. There were people saying this was DreamWorks' best movie, quite literally ever. And while the premise was basic on the surface, with that reception, it led me to believe that this was going to be some out there fantastical tale. Sadly, I can't say it lived up to that hype, but there is still a lot I liked about it, so let's cover it with another mini review. Sorry that this is the second one in a row, I just truly think that I would be rambling on if I made this 12 minutes instead of whatever it ends up being. Okay, what to talk about first? Well, there's Roz, or Roz and Bunch of Numbers, our main character for the story. She's a robot who crash lands on what seems to be some sort of post-climate change Earth. I don't know exactly what's happened, but the humans are gone and the Golden Gate Bridge is underwater. Voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, Roz is probably the single best character in the movie. It's either her or the Matt Berry Beaver. Her idiosyncrasies as a robot allow for some genuinely great humor early on, as well as opportunity for a very different point of view on nature. One moment that had me completely engrossed was when Roz, after about 10 minutes of chaotic interactions with animals, sits down and essentially hibernates long enough to learn how to speak and interpret their language. Her analytical skills and behavior definitely set her apart from many animated protagonists. Another thing I like with Roz is her character design and how it's used. The stretchy arms and devices are cool, but what I'm mainly talking about is how effectively her design portrays her emotions. Roz doesn't exactly have a face, just eyes, and yet I never once had an issue telling what she was feeling, which is a testament both to Lupita Nyong'o's voice acting and the animation. Sagging shoulders, bad posture, head tilts, all are used to convey different moods. It's all very witty. My biggest negative with Roz is probably how human-like she becomes over the course of the story. I understand her blending into the society of the animals. I just find that she loses her uniqueness when she stops acting robotic or overly optimistic. I think there's definitely a version of this character that can be both socially alien and yet approachable, which I would definitely prefer. Also, learning a bit more about her backstory would help. I understand that obscuring much of the company that Roz comes from was on purpose, and I like that, but by the end of the movie it still feels underdeveloped. Stephanie Hsu's villain character, Vantra, who hails from the same creators, is about as layered as American cheese, which sucks because I feel like with both Roz's personality around strangers and the lack of lore for the exact purpose of these bots, a redeemable villain could have fit in just fine. Vantra could come to Roz with the intention of taking her in peacefully at first, and then the two of them could discuss the different worlds they've grown attached to, resulting in both the villain problem and the lore problem being solved at once. I'm just spitballing, but in the movie's current state, I genuinely think it works better without a villain at all, which is not a great sign. We didn't need a "this is my real home" scene for us to know that this is her real home, and that's about all the purpose that Vantra serves right now. But hey, let's talk about them animals. I don't like them mostly. I already mentioned liking Matt Berry Beaver, because of course I like Matt Berry Beaver, but otherwise it's very paint by numbers. Pedro Pascal as Fink the Fox is just the snarky sidekick character, and even the idea of giving him a sad backstory has become too much of a cop-out when it comes to that archetype. The best thing they do with Fink is give him a genuinely believable attachment to the other main characters. It actually feels familial. Otherwise, though, pretty weak. Bright Bill is the loser underdog character, being the wimpy outcast that Roz raises and the character that gets her attached to animal culture. The two's relationship is kinda cute, it's just that I cannot get over how he's initially bullied by the other animals until an old wise mentor, voiced by Bill Nighy, helps him out and then dies, and then he's celebrated by the other animals when he leads them into victory, and he has a falling out with the other characters, but that's actually so early in the movie that it barely ends up mattering, and it's just so predictable. I can get behind an underdog all day, but when it's this see-through, I just can't get invested, I'm sorry. Okay, what else though? Well, there's a Catherine O'Hara opossum who offers some motherly advice to Roz. That's cute. And she's delightfully sassy without overstaying her time in the movie. So that's a good one. It just sucks that her kids are tiny little creatures with high-pitched voices that are always talking about death, which is the most surface-level subversion of expectations type joke you could possibly make in a kids movie, and I think I'm gonna move on. So, while the supporting cast of characters is subpar, DreamWorks has kind of developed a reputation for their colorful and ambitious style of animation, one they very much supported with The Wild Robot. Not only is the forest that the movie takes place in stunning, but they managed to fit in some warm colors too by the end with the eye candy that is the blazing red fire that lights up the trees. Plus, the water physics are just beautiful and this is what I live for. I think sometimes teams forget how big a part of an animated movie the animation is. Studios will aim for the most realistic or the most simplistic art style when it should really just be the most creative or the most fitting. It's for the same reason that I tend to not complain about realism in movies unless it reaches levels that actually ruin the story. Because it's a movie. What other reason did we have to create fiction than to imagine more fantastical stories outside of reality? And what other reason do we have to create art than to add more life and wildness to visuals? DreamWorks has fully embraced a comic-like art style that is just so smooth and appealing, and The Wild Robot is yet another example of that. Huge thumbs up on the animation. Oh, wait, that's all I wrote. Ah, damn. Kind of awkwardly, there's not a whole lot else to say. The themes of the movie are too simple to dive into very deep. There are themes of found family, choosing love over order, sticking together as a community, etc., etc. Unfortunately, the movie just doesn't do a whole lot with those themes that I haven't seen been done by another film. Here, I'll rattle off a few. Nimona, The Bad Guys, which is also DreamWorks, Encanto, Zootopia, Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph, and it just keeps going. I don't like being negative, it's just very hard to ignore, especially when this movie is getting more praise than any of those. The movie is pretty good, but you can poke the same holes in it as you can with many others, so the reception just has me a bit confused. Nonetheless, I'm going to be giving The Wild Robot a 7 out of 10. Check it out if you feel like it, and I'm sure you will enjoy yourself, because it's a pretty feel-good flick. Just don't go into it expecting crazy things like a movie where the only sound is ambient forest noises or something like I did. It's a lot more normal than it seems from the outside, which is fine, it's just not particularly exciting. Bye now.